Okay, here we are. Yay! My special guest, Ari Spence, who is looking fantastic today. I love everything about your outfit. Show us off, first of all, just show off a little bit.
So I have a Not Today Jesus shirt on with a rainbow Baphomet being rocked. I got,
Mhm.
my studded vest. I have my full clown, just a casual Thursday outfit that I wear when I'm going grocery shopping.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. It's, Thursdays. On Thursdays, we wear
On Thursdays we
clown.
clown.
Yes, on Thursdays, we clown. I am not, I'm like bounding. I'm like David bounding
You
today with my
you look
t-shirt and
fabulous.
flannel. So yeah, I'm missing I need a little tiny hat, but yeah. So Ari, I'm so excited to have you as my special guest and just take a moment to just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So my name is Ari Spence, also known as the lawyer formerly known as Ariana T. Soto. I have a legal background. I worked in civil rights litigation, all those, fun cases that made you say, wow, society is terrible and people are awful. That was my area that I worked in. Left that and decided to pursue theater. COVID happened, and I found my way into paranormal research. And now I'm a writing professor and I work with students with disabilities. So I'm just letting the other side guide me on this amazing path that I never could have imagined for myself.
I love this. I love this so much. We met last year at the Paranormal Research Symposium in Gettysburg and became friends through that. And then I like rediscovered you again on David's Facebook page because he shared that really cool like video series that you did around Christmas about tell us a little tiny bit about that as well.
So I did a mini series called A Very Scary Christmas where I talked about how Satan is actually the reason for the Christmas season because but for Satan, we wouldn't have a Christmas. Naturally, Terrifier 3 being a Christmas movie, I had to do a segment on that. I argued that Terrifier is the most theologically correct Christmas movie out there because the whole plot focuses around a demonic clown with deeply symbolic religious symbols. That's redundant. I'm going to redo that.
I
With deeply symbolic religious ideology showing that good overcoming evil and the power of Christ destroying, the evil, demonic, Satan, satanic clown. Ah!
I love that. And I love the symbolism in the film as well. And I loved your take on it. It was just like super cool.
Thank you. I
Um,
appreciate it.
I'm super happy I mean, I've said that 1,000 times to have you here today. And so I have just a few questions for you. I'm just going to let you go and do your thing. So, something I think we've all noticed with the Terrifier franchise very, very recently is that it's kind of, it's blown up into this cultural phenomenon, and there is a running joke in the community that uh, Art the Clown and Vicky and many of the characters, but certainly Art the Clown has become sort of like this like yassified, cool, fun, like cutesy kind of like killer that people are endeared by, and he's become a sex symbol in a way as well, in a big way. And so I know that you are a fellow folklore, a horror, a spooky stuff enthusiast. And I wanted to get your take on that, on the sudden popularity of the Terrifier franchise, this mainstream popularity, and also just the sex appeal as well.
So I think that Terrifier took people by surprise because it's not your typical slasher movie. It harkens back to a lot of what we reminisce about from like the 80s, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, all those, profound serial killer types that we would see in mainstream horror. But it takes a different spin on it because you can actively see how it draws influence from non-horror ideas. Very much like whenever you see David's performance, you can point out, oh, that's Charlie Chaplin. Oh, that's
Mhm.
Buster Keaton. All these big silent film types and tropes that we are so used to. And I feel like that's also part of the reason why he's become, yassified and sexualized. Because if you look at those movies, even though they're putsy kind of characters, somehow they generally end up with the pretty girl at the end, right? And even within the Terrifier franchise, we see this romantic side of art, because in the first one with Vicky, he goes over to the little gumball machine toy dispenser, and he gets that, little ring, and he gets down on his knees and he's all cute about it. When I was 16, I couldn't even get, some guy to take me to the movies kind of situation. But here's this creepy clown going out of his way to be romantic to this girl that he finds. And I also think that it's part physiological, right? Because the line between arousal and fear is a lot closer than what we like to think it is.
Yes, that's
So
a great point.
we're kind of diving into that primal part of ourselves where our brain is confused. I also think that the confusion is further layered because once David takes off the Terrifier and Art the Clown makeup, he's such a wholesome individual. Like, you want to take him home to mom, you want to introduce him to your parents. So there's that cognitive dissonance between the character and the actor that just culminates into the actual franchise itself.
I think that's a big part of it. Sort of like the feeling that I think there's a number of reasons why the films and the community feel like a safe space for exploration of some of those things. But I definitely feel like um, David and also a lot of the actors and there's such a familiarity and like so many warm and fuzzies for the cast, the crew, for Damien. You feel like closer to them in a way than you do with other movies necessarily, many horror films. And I feel like it creates a feeling of a safe space. Like we're not being shown something that, like when you watch a horror movie, you're consenting to the experience, right? We're going on this journey. But sometimes I've watched plenty of horror movies where I felt like this isn't really meant for me. This is meant for the male gaze, or this is something that is, I am meant to be disturbed by this in a way that makes me uncomfortable, which I understand is also the point of horror. But with Terrifier, as the franchise has gone on, starting, and I'm thinking mostly just from the current iteration, it's kind of like the audience has become part of the participation, and we've been welcomed, and we're in on the joke, and we're in on the gag, and it has created that kind of like that safe space feeling.
I agree. And I think a big part of that is because it comes from indie roots. It doesn't have that big Hollywood feel to it. You can see that it was somebody who wanted to make a lot out of a small budget. And that also makes all the production crew and all the actors a lot more accessible because they're not the big Hollywood stars that they're not likely to see your comments on social media. They're not likely to see your fan art. They're not likely to see or share something that you've created that's inspired by the work itself. So inherently in its production, it feels more homey just because it has those homey roots.
That's true. That's true. And there are still the people who are a part of it and are making other movies now as well that are kind of part of the universe, like even Stream and Screamboat and all these other things. It still feels like it's all like one big kind of family of people and films and fandom and everything. They're very accessible, and we're sort of in like a sweet spot where we're still able to kind of reach out to them, be on people's Facebook pages or Instagram or threads or whatever, and communicate with them and get likes and comments and stuff. And that can become murky territory, I've observed, but it's also really wonderful. And of course, like the conventions, I've just started to kind of get into the convention scene. Like, I mean, I've been doing paranormal conferences for a long time as a guest. It's fun for me to be fangirl and be somebody who is now just the one who's like standing in line and getting to have that connection with people. And something I've also found that is heartwarming that you didn't see in the past is that all of the characters in the film have a chance to like be loved by the audience. Like something that still haunts me that is not related to horror, but like in years past, Skylar from Breaking Bad was so vilified that she as a person and a gun was like hated and sent death threats and stuff like that. Now even the characters that we're not supposed to like in these horror movies or whatever are still people. They're still human beings to us, and they still go to the conventions and they still get the fan love, and you can really feel that. And it's such a tight community, and it really it heals something in me to see that.
I agree, because I feel the characters are more accessible because they're more holistic. They're not
Yeah.
either totally good or totally evil. We get to see
Yes.
that natural variation, especially within someone like Serena, right? Where you get to see her be the badass hero, but then you get to see her struggle with her mental health and the implications of that. And I love the scene in the third movie where she absolutely just cracks on that podcaster,
Yeah.
because that
That
came
was
from a
very real.
that's
Yeah.
a real thing, how we take these stories and these people and we forget they're human, right? We can see it how a lot of people are interacting with the cast themselves of Terrifier, forgetting that these are people, this is their job, right? And they're sharing
Right.
their gifts with us, but once the camera stops, they are people and humans just like the rest of us. So it gave almost a meta insight into the life of being one of those big actors.
Right. And that's a really good point. And I also think, and there's a lot of garbage takes on things I've noticed on mental health, mental illness, alcoholism, things like that in films where it's portrayed in a very strange way. I really love like Smile 2, for instance, but like Smile got a lot of flack for just like the sort of like the idea that like of people being crazy and that kind of stuff. And it's like I feel like it's handled really well with Sienna and the battle between good and evil, but it kind of, it really puts that sort of, obviously there is something supernatural happening, but it kind of puts it frames it in like a warm and humanistic sort of context. I have one more question for you. We kind of went through, so I had the sex appeal question, I had the cutifying and the yassifying and everything, that question. And then my other question is, one that I know is has been a hot topic, and is that like, do you think that there are feminist elements in Terrifier? Do you think it is a feminist franchise, or are we retrofitting sort of a round peg into a square hole, or has it just become more self-aware as it's gone on, recognizing and interacting with its audience in that way?
I think it's become more self aware. I don't think it's inherently a feminist franchise per se. Because if you look at the first one in isolation, it has the typical tropes that we see in any slasher film, right? You go after the woman, somehow one of the women survive becoming the final girl, right?
Right.
It's not really until the second and third one where we see Sienna come through as this Ash Williams type of character, overcoming the stereotypes and the evil, that we start to see more of a feminist interpretation of it. But
Right.
on the other hand, there's also a lot of violence against women. Like, I still am haunted by the shard of glass scene with Vicky.
It's,
I,
yeah.
I, I out loud in the theater said, "Well, that's ruined the next 3 months for me."
That's funny, right? It's the thing that got to me the most of all of it was the scene where everybody talks about in the first Terrifier with him splitting the woman in half down the middle, but I got by where there's going to be another presentation about this, I think, but just the imagery of him like wearing that woman's like genitals and like
Yeah,
the motherhood thing, and that like really threw me for a loop. And then like the bedroom scene in the second one, I can understand how somebody would see that and be like, this is disgusting and you people are sick. And I feel like, again, as time has gone on, because it took me a while to warm up to Terrifier before I wanted to watch it as well, because of that reason. I was like, I cannot sit through another movie where I feel like I feel violated through the screen. And then I ended up not feeling that way at all, since we have primarily female characters, strong female characters. As I think I agree with you, as things have gone along, they started to realize, like, I think we have like a big female audience, like everybody's getting more woke, and we're growing up as a society. And so they made sure that they included lots of like, well, we got to make sure we cut a lot of dicks off too. And, and stuff like that. So it's been cool to see. But I like your point about arousal and fear being close to each other. I've seen people arguing that like some of these things aren't sexual, but I think they are sexual. They are inherently sexual, and that they should be shocking, and they can be horrifying to people. And if they make people uncomfortable, they've done their job. Um, and yeah, I just but that if you feel like you're in on it again, like then I feel like it's a comfort. Again, it's become a comfort watch, like so many other, crime and serial killer things and shows and stuff. But it has become a place where women feel comfortable like participating and feeling like they're not left out. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
I think everything you said is true. And what I also very much enjoy about the franchise is that while it hits on all these things that we would classify as woke, it doesn't feel woke because
Right.
it's not forced. It's a very natural um
Yeah, it's not performative.
progression.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's like because you
in
can see where the influences came from, and you're just embodying these larger archetypes that aren't necessarily gendered, but instead of it being the stereotypical strong male character, now we're seeing all those archetypes we would typically see in a male being
yeah.
portrayed in the female. And I'm not a gore person in general. I came across Terrifier when I was horrendously sick, like two or 3 years ago, and I was just in the mood for a bad horror movie. I was
Hmm.
like, I want to watch something that I can look at and say, this is awful. And I was just like, this is a creepy clown. I'm like, this can't be good. And I just remember watching it, and I didn't watch any of the gore at first because I can't stomach that stuff, even
Hmm.
still, generally. But I just remember watching Art as a character and thinking to myself, what is this guy's problem? Like, I need to know more
Right.
about why he's like where did he come from? What is his MO? Because he doesn't seem to have a typical type.
I love that you said that so much, because that is another thing. That's another really great point, is that one of the complaints sometimes is that like it has no plot and there's no backstory and we don't know. And I'm like, that is one of my favorite parts, is that like sometimes things make sense and sometimes things make no sense. And I actually really love that. I love the mystery quality. It is in itself a clown and buffoon and trickster quality to have the film go in all sorts of different directions and not necessarily meet expectations or make sense to you. And I enjoy not knowing like Art's backstory. I know that we might get to that in Terrifier 4, but like for me, it's just like it can be totally nonsensical. I've always loved horror, but this has changed my outlook on horror. It's like what I said before, when I turn on the movie, I'm going on someone's journey. This is someone's art project, no pun intended. And this is somebody's film. I'm in part of their experience and their story now, and I'm just on board trying not to. I'm not going to judge, right? I'm just going to go. So I love that.
I agree. I think it's definitely one of those things, and you can pick it apart so well, right? Because it has so many open-ended questions. Something that I tell my students all the time is the author, the writer, the director, the whoever, whatever, text we're discussing or covering, they don't owe us anything. We are on their artistic journey. And there might be reasons why they're withholding information. They might be wanting us to fill in those blanks, to leave room for discussion. And I think that's something that Damien really handled well in the first one and has really taken a great journey on throughout the extension of the franchise,
Yeah.
because he's able to kind of, because it was so open-ended, he can go, okay, I want to take it this way, and then I want to take it this way, and I want to take it this way. And he left himself room to
Yeah.
develop these characters in a wide variety of directions.
Right. And I think like you and I can appreciate that too, coming from the paranormal world, where there's such a push for finding proof and evidence and all this stuff, that I sometimes I wish that we wouldn't go so hard on, because part of my love is it is the unknown that we are in love with and that we are fascinated by. And there's something sacred about it, and kind of like leaving that to be. These are, like you said, these are bigger archetypal ideas. These relate to like the human experience. And it's, in some ways it's not even for us to understand. That's the fun part of it. Do you have anything else before I hit it, stop record?
If you guys have social media and you want to give me a follow, you can find me on Instagram as legally_haunted. TikTok is the same. I'm on Facebook as Ari Spence. If you go to any of my social medias, you'll be able to find all the rest of them.
Yes, please follow and friend Ari. She's the coolest. And I just want to thank you again so much.
No, thank
And
you. This is an absolute honor, and I'm so happy that we are friends and I found someone to nerd out about this
oh,
with.
me too. I know. Awesome. All right. Well, not by in, all around, but by for the recording. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you again.
Thank
Let's
you.
see. Let's see if I can figure out how to stop recording after all these years of Zoom.